Barry, the world of AI is all around us and it's getting more impactful by the day. Irish tourism, obviously, we need to adopt and adjust to it like everyone else. You recently in TOPOSOPHY did some really interesting work for ITIC about Irish tourism's AI journey to date. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, thanks very much, Owen. So a really interesting piece of work that we did with yourself and the team in ITIC, looking, I suppose, fundamentally at the way that artificial intelligence is shaping Irish tourism, not only from an itinerary booking perspective, but across the entire kind of purchase funnel, everything from how marketing is impacted, brand, tone of voice, share of voice, all of these things. And I suppose if you rewind all the way back, you know, I think we sometimes think that these technology shocks happen to Irish tourism. And the big question for this report, I remember working out with yourself, was whether AI was happening to Irish tourism or with it. And in fairness, I think we have to give Irish tourism its due. You know, it's been around a long time, and it's been very good at adopting several different types of monumental technology. Like even if you look back to the development of transport technology. You've got obviously the canals, the railways, Dublin Airport opening in 1940. This is all technology, right?
Yeah.
And I suppose what's maybe new about this is that this is an information technology, and this information technology is built on a huge platform of investment that's happened in Ireland over the last 20 years, which is what I would say for anyone who's thinking, God, this AI stuff sounds an awful lot like the metaverse, you know, which never materialized, or all of these trends and buzzwords that we heard about that never made any impact to me running a B&B in West Kerry or a museum in Mayo. You know, the difference here, I suppose, is that AI is here. You know, it's already quickly integrated across the kind of purchase funnel. And the second thing is as well, it's what makes AI different is that it's leveraging decades of investment in digital infrastructure, and it's firmly now embedded across all of that infrastructure. So that's like a very quick tour of kind
Yeah.
of yeah.
And it's here to stay, obviously. And, you know, I think you're right. Irish tourism, we've been very good at adopting to technology. You know, it's not so long ago that people were talking about disintermediation because suddenly consumers could buy directly and, you know, so on. And we've rolled with the punches to a certain extent and adopted and adapted to new technology. So from your perspective, and I know you did a survey as part of the report, are Irish tourism businesses early adopters? Are we sort of laggards? Where do we fit within that sort of, you know, accepting the reality of AI?
Yeah, great question. And I think tourism also maybe gets a bad stick for being late to the table on some of these things. But what we've clearly seen with the work that we've done together is that, you know, out of all of the industry bodies that we surveyed, 62% are already using AI.
Yeah.
5% of those are using it extensively, meaning that it's been integrated into all of their business units, their teams are using it, you know, it's part of their day-to-day life. I mean, the last kind of technology you could say that had that level of integration was probably the internet 20 years ago. So this is transformational, and absolutely Irish tourism is adopting it. Now, where we see Irish tourism on that traditional Steve Jobs adoption curve, you know, people talk about early adopters and laggards
Yeah.
and that kind of thing, kind of certainly on the way up. People
Yeah.
are dabbling and experimenting cautiously, and with AI, they're dabbling with cheap free models, right?
Yeah.
People aren't businesses, except for the really big ones, haven't gone straight head in and invested, you know.
Yeah. So those 5% of businesses that you mentioned that have deeply integrated their business models with AI, they're probably ones who have invested in AI and maybe appointed an AI person, or, you know, they've got serious about it. But is that a budgetary thing? Is that at the moment, does that only favor sort of the larger companies who have the time and the resources and the bandwidth to look at this seriously?
Yeah, Exactly. So AI adoption and technology adoption will always favor, I suppose, larger corporate models who can roll out efficiencies at scale very quickly. And the type of organizations we're seeing using AI is airlines, large hotels, those
Yeah.
that can afford to integrate technology quickly and have the top-down organizational structure to do it. Whereas when we talk about, SMEs in Irish tourism, we're talking about, B&Bs, we're talking about restaurants.
Yeah.
They're not struggling, but they're slower to adopt at that level
Yeah.
as well because of all the issues you've mentioned as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And like it can be quite overwhelming, the world of AI. And I'm a bit of a Luddite at heart. But can you just, I suppose, in layman's terms, the pluses, the benefits of AI to a tourism business in Ireland, and then maybe let's talk a little bit about the dangers of blindly pursuing AI as a panacea, because the sweet spot is probably somewhere in the middle, isn't it?
Absolutely. There might be people listening to this who think, I use AI for content development and a few bits and bobs, and I have a free account with ChatGPT that sometimes I put my accounts into before I send them to the accountant. That's probably
Yeah,
what we're talking about in these cases. The reason that Irish tourism should be particularly interested and maybe a little bit concerned about AI is how it's changing the consumer side of things
yeah,
as well. So the consumer has been highly disrupted by AI, right? So even last year, Tourism Ireland came out with a great statistic that said 30% of visitors to Ireland are using LLMs, so ChatGPT, Claude, to help book their trips and help plan their trips. And that number rises to 40% when you consider the North American market. And
yeah,
that was last year. So
yeah,
we can only assume that number has gone up. So there's been a absolutely huge shift in the way potential visitors to Ireland discover Ireland in terms of our shop window,
yeah,
how they book and get recommendations on their trip while they're here. And that's the big change, I think, is the path to purchase funnel that we always talk about in tourism, from inspiration to post trip. The big change here, and if anyone's listening, why they should kind of be interested is the big change here is that path to purchase funnel has now become a loop
yeah,
instead of just becoming a linear journey uh,
yeah,
from one side to another, because the AI remembers and it has your credit card details and it can book for you. And the reason we know it can book for you is because there's this great statistic that ChatGPT release, which shows it just shows very clearly just the sheer amount of purchasing that is happening in travel and tourism. And travel and tourism is the number one sector for purchasing. So booking,
yeah,
hotel rooms, everything, booking through travel and tourism. So no other industry in the world is as booked or as purchased than travel and tourism when it comes to AI. And that should
yeah,
be ringing huge alarm bells for everyone. So that's what
yeah,
I'd say is the consumer side of things is probably the one to keep an eye on. On the
yeah,
demand side, to your point, how we're using AI in Irish tourism, the really interesting thing is when we did our survey with your members, the vast majority of people in Irish tourism are maybe using AI for the wrong thing, which is that they're using it for content development.
yeah. And I think you surveyed, if memory serves me right, 73 kind of member organizations, which in turn represent hundreds of businesses. So content development. So you mean kind of, it might be a bit lazy in a way. You could say that somebody gets AI to describe their itinerary or create pages on their website, or is that what you're kind of, is that what or social media posts, is that what content development sort of means in
Yeah,
this case?
yeah. And in fairness, like getting back to who these, as you said, who responded to the survey, all these people are really busy, right? They're
Yeah,
they're running really busy, maybe resource tight organizations and SMEs across the country. Like AI is doing great help for them in pulling together content. So as you said, this could be writing press releases, it could be writing menus for your
yeah,
restaurant. You see it quite a lot now, and a lot of people will maybe
yeah,
recognize. advertising posters and
Yeah.
simple things for SMEs, you'll see will now have that AI sheen to them.
Yeah. And is there danger to that, Barry, for Irish tourism that, how we tell our story, how we interpret our story is one of our USPs. And, we're known worldwide for decades for the Céad Míle Fáilte and the unique sort of interpretation of Ireland and its history. If an AI sort of gloss is put all over that, does that sort of homogenize us a little bit, or am I spoofing here?
No, not at all. I think so. I think we should always be asking the question, what can Ireland do that other people can't? And we
Yes.
know very clearly one of the things we do really well is personability and
Yeah.
relationship building. And one would definitely worry that if we are trying to, through no fault of our own, replace those relationships and touch points with computers or artificial intelligence, that an erosion will happen. And maybe not just an erosion, but every other destination in the world can do this. So
Yeah.
we're just going to end up in a kind of sea of sameness.
Yeah.
And what we should be doing is using AI to free us up to dial up the human element of Irish tourism. So the face-to-face
Yeah.
nature. And
Yeah.
the economist and the marketeer Rory Sutherland had a great line about it that we put in your report called it's called the doorman paradox.
Yeah.
Which I love, which is that, an economist who's analyzing a hotel's performance might look at a doorman and think, that's 40,000 euros every year we don't need to spend. We can just get a revolving door.
Yes.
But actually, if you look at the added value of what a doorman does, they're a human touch point. They remember people's names.
Yeah.
They welcome people back year on year.
Yeah.
All of these additional benefits that we
Yeah. And it's the memory the visitor might take home with them.
exactly, yeah. And
Yeah.
so the big worry would be we're losing our tone of voice
Yeah.
in the market with just the sheer amount of pretty good AI that's going out there,
Yeah.
but not necessarily distinctly Irish. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in the report you also called it the Francis Brennan effect. That idea of let's use AI for business efficiencies and time saving and all that sort of stuff. And as you say, if you can put your accounts in a chat GPT thing and whatever, fast track that element to work, that's brilliant. But let's make sure we protect the integrity and the Céad Míle Fáilte that Irish tourism is known for worldwide.
Precisely, and that's one of the things I think the work does really well is it's kind of like a timely reflection on why we should be intervening in this now before we lose tone of voice, market share, all of these things that are very, very difficult to get back.
Yeah.
Ireland has this really long and beautiful history of amazing advertising and messaging. And that would be something that we wouldn't want to lose through sheer kind of, sleepwalking into this issue.
Yeah, and AI, Ireland and Dublin is home, isn't it, to a lot of these sort of big AI companies and platforms. Can we be leveraging that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think this is a really brilliant point that, if we're always trying to ask the question, what can Ireland do that its competition can't? And in the AI space, the most obvious probably answer is that we can create partnerships and coalitions with the world's biggest AI companies who are all resident, their European bases in Dublin, a stone's throw from where Irish Tourism is headquartered. And that would be, we have learned these lessons in Irish tourism. We do know that it's important to do cooperative campaigns with Aer Lingus if we want to stimulate their access to North America. The same argument could be made that if we want to understand and help influence how AI is adopted in Irish tourism, that we should be collaborating with OpenAI, who are based in Dublin, all of these larger companies, even Microsoft, Google, who are some of the biggest players in OpenAI, again, all resident in Dublin. A really good example of what's going on at the moment is that OpenAI are doing their own tourism SME workshops in Dogpatch Labs in CHQ in Dublin. And these are really small steps, and but they are steps that no other destination in the world can take. and cooperating with these huge companies and helping them understand Irish tourism, it would be one very large step forward to help making sure that, I suppose, to answer the ultimate question of the report, that AI is something that happens with Irish tourism and not to Irish tourism.
Yeah, yeah. And in terms of, I mean, I know Toposophy work across Europe and probably further afield, but in terms of Ireland, in terms of the government or the tourism agencies, could we be doing more to support industry in this space? I know, for example, the new national tourism policy that the government published just last December has a metric for AI adoption or digital integration for businesses. But what could government and Fáilte Ireland, Tourism Ireland be doing to support the industry?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, and in fairness, Fáilte Ireland were brilliant in responding and giving us information for this piece of work. So their brain and their insights are all in the report as well. I think they're doing the totally right thing in terms of there's a national approach. And in fairness, like Ireland is, from the government side of things, not just in tourism, has been really brilliant in terms of the AI Council and providing very quick guidance in this area. When it comes to tourism, I think waiting for a national, in fact, the national policy, even outlining AI, was pretty radical. That's not something we have seen in other national approaches. Doing the kind of research they're doing at the moment is really important, and not, which I think is really important, like not jumping on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
And having, I think one thing Irish tourism can do really well is, because it's been around for so long, it can kind of wait and sense which way the wind is blowing and then master that thing really well.
Yeah.
In fairness, like we've seen other, to your point earlier about what can go wrong, like there are examples of other countries and destinations building LLMs or AI models which are a little bit too not well thought out into their systems and into their consumer facing platforms and sites, and things going like catastrophically wrong. So Ireland taking a cautious approach to what is the most transformational technology of the last 20 years is definitely correct.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, I mean, I think that the biggest shifts in how this technology is harnessed or not will come from the top down, not the bottom up.
Yeah.
Because as we said before, like the ability to adopt and do things effectively and quickly and thoroughly will be within the remit of government and state agencies.
Yeah.
SMEs will always struggle to adopt and deal with what is quite a complex technology.
Yeah.
That said, the report did outline very clear things which the industry would like, which, you know, aren't, in fairness, too onerous. They just would like an AI strategy for tourism, a little bit of guidance on what to do and what not to do, a little bit of training, and some examples of kind of best practice. I think, in fairness, that's what is required and probably very likely what's coming down the track with the new AI strategy anyway.
Yeah.
But
and those issues that you mentioned there that industry have called for, they're very deliverable, aren't they?
Yeah, and I think the one thing to state is that like no one's looking for some supercomputer.
Yeah.
You know, and no one's looking for hundreds of thousands of euros of investment in their business, because AI is just sitting on a long established and built infrastructure of digital capability, which is going back to decades. So like the very thin layer. It's a very thin layer that can have a huge amount of benefit. So there's no solution which is going to be extraordinarily expensive, because we're not in the infrastructure building phase. We're in the kind of like building just a little layer into these systems.
Yeah. And the report Toposophy did for it was, you know, it's probably Q1, or I think you presented it to us April or probably May. But it's such a fast moving space, isn't it? That, you know, it's nearly like the first iteration. We're probably going to have to revisit it in H2 or certainly early next year, because this it's just evolving so quickly, this area.
Yeah, I mean, there's I think the way that we did the report was quite interesting in terms of we came at it from the perspective of Irish tourism first, technology second.
Yes.
So many of we didn't dive into the buzzwords and all the different platforms and that kind of stuff. We looked at what's happening in Irish tourism and then looked at how AI was impacting that. And I think those things will stay the same.
Yeah.
So, the big genuine worry about eyeballs shifting away from our national organizations' web pages to LLMs is very real and very worrying. The skills gap, as you mentioned, with the Francis Brennan paradox being, new people coming into the industry and those early administrative jobs that are really crucial for long service. And one of the things we do in Irish tourism, which is amazing, is we have Francis Brennan's, right? We have long-standing institutional people with, half of it, like these wonderful people who started on a front desk and are now a CEO of a, That's something we have in Irish tourism, which has an intrinsic value that can't be lost. And one thing we would really worry about that the survey showed is the early steps of a career ladder in Irish tourism are all highly disruptable by AI. And we talk about content development, like 70% of ITIC members using AI for content development. That is the work of a junior manager or assistant manager in a hotel, or, so all of that early ladder being lifted up, we would be very worried about.
Yeah. Great. Barry, it was a brilliant report that you and your TOPOSOPHY colleagues put together for ITIC. It's a fascinating area, and it's one I've no doubt we'll revisit. The report is up on the ITIC website, and it's something that we'll be monitoring carefully over the next few months. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Alan.